And obviously, we're not in the insurance business. It just so happened to work out that way with Aubrey, but so she gets to have part of the June birthdays.
Joe, that's directed at you. I call the meeting to order for the June 27th closed session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all council members are present.
Now it's time for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Come on down. Will you speak into the microphone, please?
Oh, okay. I'm Ida Wolf, and the last time I was here, I passed out the papers, the signatures of people that signed for, they didn't want the statue of Ben Carlson. I wasn't feeling good, so I really couldn't tell everything. But Ben Carlson is not a hero. He saved nobody that day. He was on marijuana when he jumped in, and it took him a day to float in. His ashes, the statue was built in a relative garage, and his ashes are inside the statue. Now, everybody on this paper wants a bird bath there and want him removed. They dedicated him to the lifeguards, but he is no help for the lifeguards at all because they have no freedom of speech. And I'm hoping they have to paddleboard out or they're not paid. And I'm hoping the city council does something so I don't have to go to Sacramento. But it was Fox News that got the spice off that they were killing the seagulls. It was not the city council. And they could have been in jail because you cannot kill a seagull. So I'm hoping that you step up and do the right thing. Thank you.
So the beauty of the First Amendment is the ability to come and speak and say whatever you would like, but there is no scenario where I'm going to allow that to be said without rebuttal. Ben Carlson was absolutely a hero. His ashes are not inside of the statue. He did save someone that day, and it's frankly just those facts alone are bad enough. But it's frankly, I know you, and it's appalling to come up and say things like that about Ben. So I'm going to just suggest that on a going forward basis, this is not something that this council is going to entertain, and it's frankly hurtful to hear words like that said. And so I would just remind everyone on July 6th, this coming week, we're going to be, remembering Ben Carlson's death on July 6th, and all of us will remember it with reverence and, frankly, sadness because he was a hero who died that day. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments on agenda or non-agenda items? Seeing none, no. Mr. Harp, do you have a closed session announcement?
I do. Thank you. The City Council will adjourn to closed session to discuss the performance of the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk, and to meet with labor negotiators regarding negotiations with the council appointees. All is set forth on the agenda under items 3A and B, and the council appointees will recuse themselves from the labor negotiations based on potential impact on their finances. Thank you.
Thank you. We're recessed until the 4:30 regular meeting. Leave it in there. I call the meeting to order for the June 27th regular council meeting. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Mr. Harp, is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no closed session report this evening.
Thank you. Now's the time for the invocation by Iman Kazwini from the Islamic Educational Center of Orange County.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, respected Mayor Noah Blum and respected members of the Newport Beach City Council, greetings of peace. Please join me in this invocation as we open this afternoon session. O Lord, we pray to you to bless our great city of Newport Beach and its surroundings. O Lord, allow us all to care for one another and help our city grow in happiness and goodness. O Lord, allow us to uphold the values of our great nation by maintaining family, peaceful and caring neighborhoods, education, jobs, healthcare, safety, security, civil rights, and liberties for all people. O Lord, allow us to uphold the spirit of our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. O Lord, we pray to you to continue to guide us to establish justice for all people, regardless of their race, color, or religion. O Lord, bestow upon us wisdom and farsightedness to place the interests of our country before our own personal interests. O Lord, allow our elected officials to serve the interests of all people and to bring unity, harmony, and prosperity to our nation. O Lord, bless the United States of America and help this nation to be a shining example of peace, equality, justice, and harmony. Amen.
Thank you. If you'll please join me in saluting our amazing country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, notice to the public.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now it's time for council announcements or reports from council members on committee activities, and time for council members to request an A1 item to be placed on a future agenda. Councilmember Kleinman.
Thank you, Mayor Blum. Well, the sun finally found us just in time for the opening day of the Junior Guards Lifeguard Program. It was a truly perfect way to kick off the summer. I also had the pleasure of attending the Library Foundation's Summer Solstice Celebration, as well as the Newport Coast Fire Retardant Town Hall. Councilmember Grant and I helped host or co-host the Return of the Women in Government Luncheon tradition. And last but certainly not least, I had the honor of attending my first employee recognition lunch and got to serve tacos to our incredible staff from all departments. My apologies to those who got a heavy-handed portion of cilantro from me. It was truly wonderful to see how many people have shared so many years of their lives with the city of Newport Beach. City Manager Grace Leong and Assistant City Manager Tara Finnegan were both recognized for 5 and 15 years of service, respectively. I also wanted to just acknowledge we have a number of department heads who have quite a bit of tenure with us, so just quickly rattle them off. Melissa Hartson, our Library Service Director, 27 years. Leilani Brown, our City Clerk, 26 years. Our Fire Chief, Chief Boyles, 23 years. Our Police Chief, Chief Cartwright, 21 years. Our Recreation and Senior Services Director, Sean Levin, 21 years. City Attorney Aaron Harp, 16 years. Public Works Director Dave Webb, also 16 years. And our Community Development Director, Simone Georges, 12 years. Mark, our Utilities Director, and Barbara Salvini, our Human Resource Director, 8 years. Thank you.
Councilmember Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, Sean, how that's 21 years. You must have started here when you were 4, but good for you. Thank you for your service to everyone. I was not able to make that, but I do try to make that as much as possible, but that looked like a fun event. Ditto for the Newport Beach Library Foundation for their summer party. I thought it was a terrific event, and especially my first time attending the Junior Guards opening day. So to Chief Boyles and to everybody else on the lifeguard team, terrific job. That was a lot of fun and a highlight so far for my summer. That was cool seeing all those kids out there. I grew up in Arizona. We didn't have a beach, so that's something I feel like I was robbed of. But we're so fortunate to have that program. I also want to give kudos to John Wortman, a community leader, and what he did with the Father's Day car show at the Balboa Bay Club. That was a terrific event, and I enjoyed being there. I also had the opportunity to visit Beverly Hills with Councilwoman Kleiman and Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, and I just want to thank Lieutenant Justin Maroos for putting that together with Councilwoman Kleiman. That was a fun tour and certainly eye-opening for what's going on in the state of policing in our local area. And then also last night I had the pleasure of attending Mr. Irrelevant dinner. So if you're familiar with that, it's a great opportunity for Newport Beach to showcase who we are as a community, and I can't think of anyone better than our late great Paul Salata and what he's meant to this community. So that was another highlight and such a fun thing, and just kudos to his daughter Melanie Fitch for continuing his legacy and supporting all the great things and just doing something nice for somebody for no reason at all. So that was fun. And then I have something I want to talk about real quick. That is the Peninsula. 4th of July is around the corner. It's coming Tuesday. The Peninsula has changed a lot in the 17 years I've been here, and that's a lot of credit to our police department, all that they do to continue to make the Peninsula family friendly. So in that spirit, July 4th, please join us for a bike parade on 36th Street and Balboa at 9 a.m., and we'll do a nice parade down to Channel Park there beginning at 9:30. So this is a free event and one of my favorites, so hope to see you out there. Thank you. That's all I have.
I will be there with you.
Okay.
On a regular bike, not an e-bike.
Good. No cheating.
I also want to congratulate the Newport Beach Library Foundation on their summer solstice. Many of us attended, and their new member event, one of the hardest working groups in our city, and we so appreciate the Library Foundation. I also was glad to have a chance to acknowledge city staff at the 63rd Employee Recognition Lunch. That's a big number. And I want to thank for not only the staff, but also the members of the public that participated. I'll just say them quickly. Dory Deli, Newport Rib Company, Bayside Restaurant, Avia's Ranchito, Cappy's Cafe, Blue Water Grill, Salsitas Tacos, the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, SoCal Edison, the Toll Roads, Irvine Ranch Water District, Redwood West, and Burnham USA. They were all partners in the event, provided a lot of fun food and a lot of friendship and camaraderie. Thank you for that to the members of our public. Over the weekend, the Balboa Yacht Club held their biennial Transpac send-off. It's an exciting time at the clubs. It included 2 local yachts, Bolt and Fast Exit 2, and we have local crews participating in this 100-year tradition. That's really exciting for our city. Also want to say bravo to the Newport Beach Arts Commission. They were here in the community room and in the park this weekend for their event, the Newport Beach Arts Exhibition, and the launch of Phase 8 of our sculpture collection. There's 10 new sculptures up in the park. Great to get out there in our beautiful sunshine now and see those exhibits. And then finally, thank you to the Newport Beach Police Department and Nordstrom's for hosting Sunday's Mobile Cafe at Fashion Island. A lot of people attended. It was a great time for the community to come together, meet our police, and understand really how much goes into public safety here in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wagon.
Yes, as Councilmember Stapleton mentioned, the 4th of July down on the peninsula would be a good event. I would like to be there, but the 4th of July event in Dover Shores is a little conflicting in the assistance, as the Mariners Elementary School Foundation would put on the event every year, and the previous council to us knows that they pulled out of that event. So a few members of the community rallied together to form a small children's bike parade that will occur at 10:30 at the same time, so council members will have enough time to participate in the 9 o'clock event down on the peninsula and still find their way up to Dover Shores if they wish. But exactly, you could bike to both. But I want to thank Sean Levin and our Parks Department for kind of helping those community members get an idea of what they needed to do to get that event rolling. But and no pun intended. But it is at 10:30 a.m. It's on Mariners Drive between Santiago and Dover. It'll be quick and easy, but it will be still a tradition over 40 plus. I think this is the 50th year, so that was able to hold the tradition steady and hope to do a little bit more in the future years to come. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Avery.
One of the striking things about the employee lunch, beyond just the exceptional folks we have that work for the city, was seeing the number of folks. I mean, I've always known it to be, Mr. O'Neill probably knows exactly, but 750, 60. Extraordinary. It's a lot of people, and a lot of hash got served, some good hash by our council members. And I was just kind of walking around aimlessly. I wasn't really helping. But I really enjoyed just the whole thing because the community did come together, all the restaurants and the managers, dishing it out, and the council members. And it was just great. And it always is great. And it's just part of the community of the city. And it takes time to build culture. And we've got a great one going here. So, and it was evident with the awards that were given out, and you could just plainly see everybody was really enjoying it. I can't let that BYC thing go about Transpac. Newport Harbor Yacht Club also had their Transpac send off, and they also have two boats, and so the two boats are somewhat similar that are going, and you can go on the Transpac website, just Google Trans-Pacific Yacht Club, and you can follow the race in almost real time from the satellite transponders on the boats. And it gets to be pretty fascinating, and I kind of go all geeky on it because you can also do a virtual race alongside the real race and see how you do in terms of jibing downwind and strategy and the weather and putting all those inputs in and to try to beat the fleet that's racing over to Hawaii. So check out the Transpac Yacht Club website. Because it's really a fun thing. You'll find yourself getting up early every morning and seeing how they're doing. And I'm looking forward to spending my 4th of July parade on the water, sailing up and down the harbor, which is sort of a tradition for a lot of folks. And then help the harbor master maybe keep the raft ups under control, So, end of comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. A couple things. We have a lot of folks up in Newport Coast in CDM looking after fires, and so specifically they've gotten to be really good about putting together with the city's help a fire council, and so a lot of work going on up there to work with HOAs, residents, and our fire department. So I appreciate all the work that our fire department puts into that. We had a fire town hall up in Newport Coast a couple weeks ago. Council members Grant and Kleiman were there. I appreciate them being there. A lot of good discussion being had, so appreciated that. Also, after the last council meeting where we were discussing the homeless ad hoc discussion, which will come later, but one of the many folks showed up from the St. Mark's preschool across the way. One of the discussion points that I was having during that was to make sure that they were on the same page with the local church up there at St. Mark's. And the good news was I actually was able to sit down with the pastor up there, Mark Davis, who's been actually working in the homeless community and sphere around the county for quite some time. And so a couple things on that, because we were able to get on the same page after having that discussion too. So a couple things. One of them is, like I mentioned, Pastor Davis has been in the homeless community for quite some time, helping folks get up and off the streets. And so getting on the same page with Pastor Davis was not complicated. We have very similar goals, and so we were able to have that discussion. I mentioned also during the discussion, I saw some of the comments that were in a Stu News article. Turns out those comments were actually part of a much bigger letter that he had sent to his congregation, and only snippets had been pulled in on that. And so having the full picture there helped me to understand his perspective better, which is why, again, it's good to go out and actually talk to people. So I did appreciate that quite a bit. The other thing that, based on conversations folks had with him after the council meeting, seemed to have had a perspective that I had said that I'd had meetings with him where he was at odds with the parents. Just to be clear, I didn't mean that if I said it. It was It was really more in context of trying to understand some of the comments that had made in Stu News. Now I understand them. I just want to say very clearly, I've enjoyed working with him recently, and I've looked forward to working with him again. It's good to have partnerships and relationships like that. So I did appreciate the ability to sit down. And again, just encourage folks, when there's confusion or on things said, it's always good to sit down and have a conversation. On the Newport Beach Police Foundation is having a meeting tomorrow over at Sherman Gardens. Really recommend going to that. And then on July 4th, yep, I'll see you there, Councilmember Weigand. And then on July 6th, just a reminder for folks, July 6th every year in the city of Newport Beach is Ben Carlson Day. For those of you who are new to town, Ben Carlson was a Newport Beach lifeguard who died in the line of duty 9 years ago on July 6th. We, as a council, have in perpetuity named July 6th Ben Carlson Day. If you go down to the peninsula, the pier area, and you see a lifeguard statue looking out toward the water, that's a statue of Ben Carlson. The person that he rescued that day is still alive. Unfortunately, in the midst of that save, Ben lost his life. So just a reminder on July 6th that is a day that we recognize here in the city of Newport Beach as Ben Carlson Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And normally I gloss right over this portion of the meeting myself, but I do have a couple of pieces to say. One is this is Mr. Irrelevant Week, and we launched it yesterday. It was amazing. If you've never seen Chief Cartwright do stand-up, I think he's touring next week. Chief, just give your tour dates available. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. But a lot of fun, and I think something that's, it honors Paul Salata, who was a great resident of Newport and just really a comical human, and brought a bit of levity to all of this. And then on the second point, we'd asked and worked very closely with Assemblymember Dixon to work on the group home issue, and we're pleased to announce that the State Legislature Joint Legislative Audit Committee has approved the request for an audit into the management and oversight of state licensed sober living homes. And this is big for us. We've looked for a lot of ways to kind of work with the state on how these are regulated. The ones that are within the city itself, we tend to have great success with. The ones that we get to actually deal with and we're not hamstrung by. And so this is a really important issue for all of us to kind of keep moving forward in this direction. So we're very thankful for Assemblyman Dixon's support in this, and actually a huge bipartisan push on this. And we will keep you abreast of this situation. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read notice regarding public comments on consent calendar.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 18. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommended in action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. I need to note that I'll be recusing myself from any discussions regarding item 4 due to real property interest conflicts.
Thank you. Councilmember Kleinman, do you have any items to pull or conflicts to announce?
I do not.
Councilmember Stapleton.
Item 10 is being pulled, I'm assuming?
Yes. Staff is pulling 10. Perfect.
So no conflict to announce.
Councilmember Grant.
None.
Councilmember Weigand.
I do not.
Councilmember Avery.
I have none.
Mayor Pro Tem.
None.
And I have none.
All right, before I make the motion, Mr. Harp, on item number 10, the request is to remove it off the calendar. So or off the agenda. So is it simply a removal of the item, or is it a table?
I think removal of the item would be appropriate.
Okay. All right, so move the consent calendar with item number 1, which are the minutes showing some amendments. Item number 10, removed from the agenda completely. And actually, that's it.
Wonderful. We'll now hear public comment.
We need a second.
Oh, do we have a second on that yet? Joe? Councilmember Stapleton. Perfect. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and go out for public comments on time. I'm not looking at you specifically, Jim, but I kind of am.
Mayor Blum, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I just wanted to say that I am pleased to see that item 10 is being removed from the calendar for more consideration by the city staff. The memo about that was very cryptic, but I think it refers to an equally cryptic provision in the lease, which is section 7.1 that says that the leasee has to comply with, I think it's called Chapter 728 of the statutes of 1994. And you might wonder what that is. That is part of the Beacon Bay Bill, and it addresses the city's authority to lease the property on which the so-called terrace apartments, once known as the Great Wall of China along Coast Highway, currently exists. And that legislation, which was promoted by the city itself back in 1994, allows the city to lease that property with permission of the State Lands Commission, but even with their permission, the city cannot lease it for residential purposes beyond 2044, which is about 20 years from now, and you have a request to extend the lease for 50 years. That's one of the major revenue sources for the project that is there, so there's clearly something that's going to have to change much before the next 50 years, and the council that would approve or consider any extension needs to know that there is that restriction in state law on the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on consent? Seeing none, seeing no other comments up here, let's go ahead and vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3 and 4. Ordinance 2023-7, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Newport Beach Municipal Code, Section 3.36.030, related to cost recovery percentages, and Ordinance 2023-10, amending Title 20, Planning and Zoning of the Newport Beach Municipal Code, to establish the Special Flood Zone, VE Overlay District. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Wonderful. Let's move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Now would be the time to come up and speak on non-agenda items. Anybody, please?
Thank you very much. Is there a clock?
It is right in front of you.
Right in front of me. I'm Fred Smoller, a professor of political science at Chapman University in Orange. You might remember about 10 years ago, there was a Department of Energy solar decathlon in Irvine at the Great Park, and it stayed in 2015. Well, for better or worse, I'm the fellow who brought it here. These are houses. It's an international academic competition where houses come from all over the world. Well, since that time, I've been to China and Colorado because we've become increasingly conscious of the damage caused by climate change, wildfires, coastal erosion, flooding here, and Balboa Island, so it's pretty obvious. So I was able to get a $5 million grant from the state legislature to put on the Orange County Sustainability Decathlon. And I have in front of you what we've sent out to the schools. We will have 15 homes from around, mostly California, but also the other places in the United States and China. But ours is a California competition funded by California, and I've been to the schools because we have a whole K through 12 outreach, and I was at Newport Mesa just last week, and they were very, very supportive, as are virtually, well, all of the districts that I've been to, and I will go to them all. So I'm here to ask you, as I've asked the other cities, to provide some level of support for the student component. And what we want to do is be able to provide box lunches for each of the kids, 1,000 kids. The fare charges $18.50, which I thought was high, but for each of the lunch. Obviously, that comes to $18,000. It's a lot of money, and the more you can do, of course, we would take it. But when I spoke to the state, because I wanted this to be every 2 years, and this is bipartisan, by the way, Miss Assemblywoman Dixon is very, very supportive of this, and if you go to my website, my email, you can see the link where she speaks about it. And Arnold Schwarzenegger and Laurie Davies and others. I want it back every 2 years, but what the state said to me was, good luck, we'll give you the first $5 million, we want to see local government buy-in. And I couldn't disagree with them. So I am asking, I've gotten some support from the other cities, Irvine, Costa Mesa, and others, and I hope Newport Beach can be as supportive as well. Thank you very much. And you know how to reach me.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mayor Blum and City Council members, I'm Virginia Anders Elmore, and I live in Newport Shores, which is in West Newport. And I am someone who does believe in the climate change. I believe we need to address it. I actually am a member of the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, who also supports the decathlon. And I also have taken some courses from Al Gore with the Climate Reality Project. Now that I have you thinking, oh, I'm going to just take a grain of salt from what she's saying, I would ask you, please reconsider. Please, we would love to support the OC Sustainable Decathlon. We feel that along with its ability to address the climate change and the greenhouse gases, it'll also help inform the public about all the new technology that is coming in place from the architectural areas and the engineering, and this will really serve our community. As Fred Smollers has said, we have a lot of Republican Assembly members that are supporting this decathlon, and so we would hope that you would join us in that. I also want to point out that I've attended the Water Quality and Coastal Tidal Committees and the General Plan Committee, and I hear the concern they have about the sea level rise and the changes that are happening. And I do have to acknowledge that you guys are addressing some of the issues that climate crisis and the climate challenge has presented to Newport Beach, such as the beach sand replenishment, the drought tolerant plants in our medians, and the pumps and the manpower that deal with the flooding on the Balboa Island, and the green carts that are used for the food scraps and yard trimmings that reduce our methane production. I really applaud us for doing that. I'm very happy to be a part of that. But I have to point out also to you that I hope you really will start really pushing forward with these efforts. And because there's been surveys of Orange County in 2020 that show that 73% of the members or the people that were in the survey do believe that man-made climate change is real, and that even Republicans, since in 2019, the ones that think that climate change is a real concern went from 39% to 73%. So I think that the community is moving towards the efforts to make sure that we deal with the climate change. And I see the OC Sustainability Decathlon as something that we could support and be able to forward this effort.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, City Council members. I always get nervous, so I tend to read this. I'm Kathleen Andrews, and I'm representing City Council District Number 3, Eric Wiggins, and I'm also in the Climate Reality Project. And I encourage the council to support the Orange County Sustainability Decathlon financially as another demonstration about how practical and forward-thinking the city is. Dr. Fred Smoller mentioned that the Newport Mesa School District was the most supportive of any school district that he's presented to. School board members are enthusiastic about the educational opportunities presented by the decathlon. Newport Beach has great schools that prepare students for this fast-arriving future. And if the city of Newport Beach paying for student lunches would make a powerful statement that the city is making it easy for our students to be exposed to these cutting-edge designs that will be presented as the contest designs. When you visit the decathlon, because it's going to be just over at the fairgrounds October 2nd to 15th, I believe, you'll be astounded at the designs you'll see and be confident that by visiting and being exposed to the designs, Newport Beach student visiting this year will be able to produce designs even more astounding, practical, and worth taking to market when they get to college or university. And let's keep in mind that Orange County Sustainability Decathlon is not just a boon for the students who build the projects. It's very likely that city staff could get ideas from the houses that the contestants use in their projects. The city will find it that much easier to invest in money-saving tech and meet the state's sustainability goals. Some city residents will be inspired by lifestyle ideas and designs that they'll see there and will request their favorite general contractor to install them. Others will learn more about microgrids, and they'll implement microgrids in their neighborhoods, and then they and their neighbors will not be affected by brownouts and increase their energy security. The event will be a great opportunity for a global interchange of ideas and a catalyst to the best kinds of change. By contributing when the event is a success, each of you council members will be proud that you contribute to that success and move Orange County several steps closer to being the sustainability capital of the world. Thank you for carefully considering this proposal.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. I'm a resident of Costa Mesa currently, but I used to live in Newport Beach. I've been in this area for 43 years. When I heard, I don't know if many of you have gone out to the Great Park in past years and seen the decathlon there. The homes that were brought by the university, these are architectural students, civil engineering students, mechanical engineers. It really goes across the spectrum of engineering. These students built the most amazing homes. Some of them were hurricane-proof. Some of them supported a microgrid for the block. Some of them used cargo containers. Talk about affordable housing. So when I saw what Fred did and brought that same event, I was very disappointed to see that it was canceled for the Great Park. When he brought it to the Orange County Fairgrounds, I was so excited. I want to tell you another reason why. I am an advisor. I'm a retired Boeing engineer. So if you want to ask me about some of the engineering practicalities of sustainable living or electrical engineering, fine, please ask me. But I advise at UCI. I'm in race car engineering class, and it's all electric, mostly. And the students are learning about electricity. Just to give you an example, an electric car uses 90% of the energy stored in the car, whereas a gas car uses only 20%. Most of it goes up as heat. It's a terrible waste. Just this last year or two, solar energy is now the cheapest energy versus coal, gas. So in terms of the future and for students, and I work with students as a retiree, I work with students every week, the energy and the enthusiasm and the ideas that I see are astounding. And this decathlon is a great opportunity for them to visit and to see. It's another opportunity for us adults to see how we can improve our homes. This goes for your planning commission, your planning codes. How can we make it easy to install solar panels across Orange County or across the state? Do you know every city has its own code, which is kind of a waste. If there were the same code for each house, think of the savings that would occur. Then standards would develop. There'd be standard panels, standard mounting systems that are safe, affordable. So there's a lot of benefits for this decathlon. I would like to see, Costa Mesa's contributed some money. I would like to see Newport also I'd like to see every city in Orange County contribute money to this very valuable effort. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Excellent. Seeing none, we're going to move on to current business. Item 19, appointments to the Water Quality and Coastal Tidelands Committee. We need a brief report on this, anything?
No report, but just to note that in order to be appointed, the nominees must receive at least 4 votes.
Wonderful. Do we have any council questions or comments on this? Okay, let's go out to the public then. Comments on?
Thank you, Mayor Blom, members of the council. Since you had no presentation on this, those reading the staff report will realize there's a continuing problem getting nominations for this Water Quality Coastal Tidelands Committee, even though it is an important and well-attended committee. I think part of the problem may be that through some peculiarity of how it was set up, the nominations occur only once every 2 years, and under your current policy, the city clerk is in the habit, or actually in order, to discard applications that have been on file for 2 years. You might consider changing that direction to the city clerk so people who showed previous interest in this will have their applications, and perhaps they could be contacted to see if they're still interested in applying for this. But there is a continuing problem. It's an important committee. You're not getting enough applications for it, and I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Wonderful. Seeing none, seeing nothing else from the dais, Madam Clerk, proceed with the vote tally, please.
Okay, Councilmember Avery voted for Tom Houston, Craig Hudson, and George Robertson. Councilmember Wigan voted for Tom Houston, George Robertson, and John Wadsworth. Councilmember Grant voted for Tom Houston, Craig Hudson, and George Robertson. Councilmember Stapleton voted for Craig Hudson, George Robertson, and John Wadsworth. Councilmember Kleiman voted for Craig Hudson, George Robertson, and John Wadsworth. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Craig Hudson, Spencer Purdy, and John Wadsworth. And then Mayor Blom, Spencer Purdy, George Robertson, and John Wadsworth. So with 5 votes, that would be Craig Hudson, George Robertson, and John Wadsworth. Tom Houston received 3 votes, and Spencer Purdy received 2. So the 3 would be Craig Hudson, Robertson, and Wadsworth.
Wonderful. We just want to thank everyone who applied for this. We really appreciate all the civil service, especially on these committees. All right, moving on to item 20. This is the annual appointments for scheduled board and commission vacancies and 1 unscheduled vacancy on the City Arts Commission. I'll be recusing myself from the appointments for the Art Commission to avoid any questions of bias, given my father is one of the nominees. Madam Clerk, do you have anything to announce for this piece?
Like previously, in order to be appointed, the nominees must receive at least 4 votes. And since we do have a recusal, I'll read the City Arts Commission votes first, and also the council members in attendance would also need to determine which arts commissioner will receive the unexpired term that expires on June 30th, 2025.
Excellent. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever spoken before one of these votes, but there are 2 things I just want to say real quickly. One of them is at a last council meeting, we were asked to waive the council policy for 2 terms. Doing so does not mean we would actually vote for that person. I love that person, but I'm not going to be willing to waive that for the actual vote. And I just felt like I needed to say that because I love that guy, but I'm just not willing to make that vote tonight. I also want to note real quickly that sometimes hard issues come up, and we do have an incumbent on one of our boards who has run into legal troubles that involve the criminal side of things. And though everyone is entitled to their day in court and to prove their innocence, I just want to point out that especially when we're dealing with that particular board, that it's important that, you know, they have a clean record completely. So I just want to point out there is one incumbent that I would normally support, but in that situation, I'm not going to, and I think it's worth saying that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no other comments up here, let's go out to the public for comments on this item. Any comments on the boards and commission piece? Seeing none. Wonderful. Perfect.
As stated previously, I'll read the votes for the City Arts Commission. There are 2 vacancies. Councilmember Stapleton voted for Melissa Candell and Vanessa Moore. Councilmember Grant voted for John Blom and Walt Howell. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill voted for Melissa Candell and Vanessa Moore. Councilmember Avery voted for John Blom and Walt Howell. Councilmember Wigan voted for John Blom and Walt Howell. Councilmember Kleiman voted for Melissa Candell and Vanessa Moore. So with 3 votes going to John Blom, Walt Howell, Melissa Candell, and Vanessa Moore, we will vote a second time for the City Arts Commission just between those 4 members. And again, they need 4 votes. Councilmember Avery for vote 2 voted for John Blom and Walt Howell. Councilmember Wigan, John Blom, Walt Howell. Councilmember Kleiman, Melissa Candell, and Vanessa Moore. Councilmember Grant, John Blom, and Walt Howell. Councilmember Stapleton, Melissa Candell, and Vanessa Moore. And Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, John Blom, and Melissa Candell. So John Blom did receive 4 votes. We'll have to do a 3rd vote with Walt Howell, Melissa Candell, and Vanessa Moore.
I've got a question, Mr. Harp. Now that the conflict is no longer at issue, can the mayor vote?
Good point.
I think you can. That sounds like a good idea.
How weird. All right, let's go.
Vote 3, Councilmember Avery, Walt Howell, Melissa Candell. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
He wants Paul.
Reset. Councilmember Avery votes for Walt Howell. Councilmember Weigand, Walt Howell. Councilmember Grant, Walt Howell. Councilmember Stapleton, Vanessa Moore. Councilmember Kleiman, Melissa Candell. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Melissa Candell. Mayor Blom, Melissa Candell. So vote number, where are we on now? 4. Between Walt Howell and Melissa Candell, vote for 1. Give these back if we have more votes to do. Vote for Councilmember Weigand, Walt Howell. Councilmember Avery, Walt Howell. Councilmember Kleiman, Melissa Candell. Councilmember Stapleton, Melissa Candell. Councilmember Grant, Walt Howell. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Melissa Candell. And Mayor, Melissa Candell. Melissa Candell is appointed to the Arts Commission. And between Melissa and John Blom, which you'll have to recuse yourself, we have to determine which arts commissioner will serve until 2025.
You want to just put it to like some type of game of chance, who gets longer?
No,
appointment?
I think that the person who got it first should get it, so.
I concur.
Yeah, so I would make that motion, that Mr. Blom gets the longer term.
And I'll second.
Do we need to take a vote?
Maybe just raise a hand since we got other items. Okay.
It's unanimous, thank you. Okay, so now for the other votes. Back to 1. Okay, Board of Library Trustees. Karen Kramer, Councilmember Stapleton votes for Karen Kramer, or Lauren Kramer. Let me start over again. Councilmember Stapleton votes for Lauren Kramer and Dorothy Larson. Councilmember Grant, Lauren Kramer, Dorothy Larson. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Lauren Kramer and Jenny Williams. Councilmember Avery, Lauren Kramer, Dorothy Larson. Councilmember Weigand, Lauren Kramer, Dorothy Larson. Councilmember Kleiman, Lauren Kramer, Dorothy Larson, and Mayor Blom, Lauren Kramer, Jenny Williams. With 7 votes for Lauren Kramer and 4 votes for Dorothy Larson and 2 votes for Jenny Williams, it'll be Lauren Kramer and Dorothy Larson.
5 votes for Dorothy.
5 votes for Dorothy Larson. And then 2 votes for Jenny Williams. Thank you. And then Building and Fire Board of Appeals, there is 1 vacancy. Councilmember Stapleton votes for Michael Manning. Councilmember Grant, Michael Manning. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Michael Manning. Councilmember Weigand, Michael Manning. Councilmember Kleiman, Michael Manning. Mayor Blom, Michael Manning. Councilmember Avery, Kenneth Kasdan. With 6 votes for Michael Manning, he will be appointed to Building and Fire Board of Appeals. Civil Service Board, there is 1 vacancy. Councilmember Stapleton votes for Lori Cowie. Councilmember Grant, Matthew Parisi. Councilmember Weigand, Mike Talbot. Councilmember Kleiman, Laura Cowie. Councilmember Avery, Mike Talbot. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Laura Cowie, and Mayor Blom, Laura Cowie. With 4 votes, Laura Cowie is appointed to Civil Service Board. Next is Harbor Commission. There is 1 vacancy. Councilmember Stapleton votes for Marie Marston. Councilmember Grant, Marie Marston. Councilmember Weigand, Marie Marston. Councilmember Kleiman, Marie Marston. Councilmember Avery, Marie Marston. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Marie Marston. And Mayor Blom, Marie Marston. That's 7 votes for Marie Marston. For PBNR, Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission, there are 2 vacancies. Councilmember Stapleton votes for Kate Maloof and Ann Yelsey. Councilmember Grant, Laird Hayes, and Kate Maloof. Councilmember Weigand, Laird Hayes, and Kate Maloof. Councilmember Kleiman, Kate Maloof, and Ann Yelsey. Councilmember Avery, Laird Hayes, Kate Maloof. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Kate Maloof, and Ann Yelsey. And Mayor Blom, Kate Maloof, and Ann Yelsey. With 7 votes for Kate Maloof, she is appointed, and with 4 votes to Ann Yelsey, she is appointed to the PBNR. For Planning Commission, there are 2 vacancies. Councilmember Stapleton only voted once.
No, Joe, you absolutely cannot.
Councilmember Stapleton voted for Mark Rosine and David Celine. Councilmember Grant, Mark Rosine, and David Celine. No, I'm sorry. Let me start over again with Councilmember Grant voted for Mark Rosine and Debbie Stevens. Councilmember Weigand, Mark Rosine and Debbie Stevens. Councilmember Kleiman, Mark Rosine and David Celine. Councilmember Avery, Mark Rosine and Debbie Stevens. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, Mark Rosine and David Celine. And Mayor Blom, Mark Rosine and David Celine. With 7 votes for Mark Rosine and 4 votes for David Celine, they are appointed to the Planning Commission.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone who applied, and thank you to my colleagues on the ad hoc commission or committee for running through all of these. It was actually really wonderful to see how many applications we had coming through for all of these positions. As many of you may or may not know, these are unpaid jobs where you get to spend a lot of time doing the beauty of bureaucracy and making a glorious change to the city you live in. So I thank everyone who came out and applied, and I encourage you to keep doing so. All right, we're going to move over into item 21. Resolution number 2023-40, pilot program to permit homeowners associations to install privately operated security cameras within the public right-of-way. We have a staff report. Oh, hello, Mr. Webb. Perfect. Staff report, please.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Council, Dave Webb, your Public Works Director, and have a brief little PowerPoint for you here. So, as you recall, and for the people in the audience and at home, we've had a little discussion on this back in March of 2023. We had an A item introduced by Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill at that time, looking to direct staff to explore and develop a pilot program for Newport Beach HOAs for 50 homeowners or more, and to use solar-powered security cameras in the public right-of-way. We followed up with that in April of 23 with a council study session where you heard some intro on that, some facts, and the police chief and I discussed a little bit, and then we took your comment back to go ahead and start developing that pilot program. So tonight we want to bring that forward to you and see if you agree on that and get your direction. So the elements of the pilot program we're proposing tonight would be basically to run 1 year. This is a discussion you had with us to give it a 1 year trial. So we thought we'd begin January 27th tomorrow, and we'd go for a year till July 1st. That could be extended again as we get near the end in comments, or shortened depending on the council's direction as we move through the pilot. The pilot program would again be applied to up to 10 homeowners associations. We're looking at significant size of 50 units or more, and they could be allowed to install these private security cameras within the public right-of-way. In that case, the pilot program would have to modify and waive Council Policy L6 language to allow the private cameras, because they currently are not allowed in the Council Policy now. And the pilot program would temporarily waive the collection of rents for use of the right-of-way. However, we're proposing that you'd still charge the encroachment permit fees and agreement fees to be paid by the folks who are applying for this. HOA applicants would need to abide by all the conditions of the encroachment permits, and we'd look for uniform signage. We had a couple examples last time. Down in front, I have for the council basically our neighborhood enforcement sign. We have that in your packet. Exhibit D shows what we'd do with that, with the artwork, make a modified sign, and that would be the sign we'd use in all the neighborhoods that recognize video enforcement in place. And then finally, at the end of this, we'd like the police department to provide the city council with a follow-up report at the conclusion to kind of talk about how the pilot program went regarding crime reduction impacts associated with the programs. And then just for the preliminary conditions for the camera, with the discussion, we also want to make sure that the applicants complete and pay the application fees, provide the necessary contact information with the HOA, the formation, the contact person we're going to have to talk to if we have any information. Provide us with the camera information. There are lots of camera models out there, so we need to know the specifics of that, the signage plan, also the installer's information. And then we need to learn a little bit about the security cameras. We need to see that they're battery or solar powered, communication fixed. We need to ensure that they're basically fixed in one direction and not focusing at any one particular house, but at the roadway. The cameras would not be either a pan, tilt, or zoom model, nor would they be collecting facial recognition nor recording audio on that. Those would be the conditions of the permit. The HOA would agree to these security camera items, and then also agree that if we needed to move it or anything like that, they'd work with the city in that. They'd also agree that they would share any statistical information with our police department should we need that to assess the pilot program. And lastly, the HOA would need to assign an indemnification holding the city harmless of any outcomes of that. And to date, we've had 4 homeowner associations approach us and express an interest in this. These are the 4 homeowners that we've been talking to: Spyglass Hill Community Association, Harbor View Association. The Port Streets has 2. That's the first phase. Also, Newport Hills Community Association, the second in the Port Streets, and also Dover Shores has reached out and expressed interest to date. With that, I will turn it to you for any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, no questions, but simply say thank you to, this is one of those where we didn't know what we didn't know. This got brought forward in particular by the folks over at the Spyglass Hills Homeowners Association. They have a meeting going tonight. So the person who really spearheaded this effort, Bruce Horn, is actually doing his duties, and he's presiding over his HOA board meeting. But I just wanted to say publicly thank you to him and to the HOA board for bringing this to our attention, being diligent and working with us as we kind of work through the, what this looks like. We'll continue to work with them and hopefully other homeowner associations as we move forward. I just note real quickly, in our packets, we did have a small red line change to the item. So when we vote on it, we'll make sure to incorporate that in, but just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Councilmember Grant.
Just curious on a couple of facts about this, and I know some of it information is provided, but maybe you could just outline. I'm just curious on, is there sort of like an average amount of cameras and costs? What's the community input in this kind of a program?
Good question.
I realize it varies by community because of the size, but just generally.
I don't have a whole lot of experience on putting these cameras in. One of the associations proposed, that was Spyglass, they had a plan with 8 cameras proposed. They would have to work probably closely with the police department because of the nature of the cameras and what they're exactly looking for. And we would require that the HOA obviously get community input from their folks, because one of the conditions in the permit I didn't mention, should the camera have to go in front of a house, they'd want that homeowner's permission prior to placing it in front of a house. But that's about as many specifics we have at this time.
So you don't know what like the cost per camera of installation and maintenance and all that? I'm just curious what a community's investment in this is, because we didn't get 10, which is interesting. I would have thought we'd have had 30, but
I did spoke with a rep with one of the camera firms. It didn't seem like a whole lot of money. I can't remember the quote, but most of the time they lease them. They don't buy them outright. The firm will put them in, provide all the maintenance, provide all the back house of software and analysis for them, and coordinate with the police department should they wish so.
So maybe it's more of a communication and PR kind of a thing to get the word out more, as opposed to being cost prohibitive or.
I think so, and I think you're going to
fill out
police
the
will have a lot
program.
to say on that, because people think they need a lot of cameras, but you might find just a couple strategically placed answer the questions they're looking for. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wigan.
Yes, I want to thank Councilmember O'Neill for bringing this up, and through the Spyglass Community Association for doing so. I had a question about the year. So it's a pilot project for a year. July 1st is the year. How long is it going to take for each one of these HOAs to kind of come up with a plan and then install the cameras? I want to have a successful 1 year time, but if it's going to take 3 months for these guys to get going, I want to see a full year. Is that maybe push that back to August 1st or September 1st, just so that they get the full year?
That could be council's discretion. We have one plan. Spyglass has theirs together already. The other 3 have not started their plan, so figure it's going to probably a month to get them going. I think it'd be reasonable to give them a little more time if you feel. We'll need to reach out to them. We'll probably need some board meetings and things just to make sure they want to do this. Research camera companies. There's one I know that's talking, but there could be others they want to look at. That could take some time too. So we'd be open to any suggestions you have there.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this is great for the community and for those HOAs to put in. So I just want to see it effectively give us some data and some good results. So if council is interested, maybe we look maybe a month or 2 beyond that July 1st, but I'll leave it to them to make that decision.
Councilmember Avery.
You know, when this first came up, I just thought, you know, it's, as a society, we're really giving up a lot of our right to privacy with so much of this surveillance and also with tracking of person on boats out there with the GPS. And as time goes on, there'll just be more and more of it. And I'm for this program because I think residents want it, and my job up here is to, you know, support residents and what their perceived needs are and what their actual needs are, given, you know, some of the issues in the neighborhoods with burglaries, and obviously for the police department, it makes their job easier when they have information to follow up on this stuff. But it's it just strikes me, you know, we're as a society going to see more and more surveillance of our activities by you know, agencies, not only in these private but also out in public spaces and in, you know, in our neighborhoods. So as we get more used to it and more accepting, you know, I think everybody should think about that a little bit, where we go with that and what that's like in perhaps, you know, a different world going forward 10, 20 years. So, but I completely understand the desire to have something that we have some more tools to push back against criminals that come into our neighborhoods. But we all know statistically, you know, crime in Newport Beach at this level is moderate or down from statistically from previous periods. So I still leave my front door open during the day. Fighting this all the way. Thank you.
And Councilmember Avery's address is. He's got a big dog. It's a very big dog. Seeing no other comments immediately up here, let's go out to the community for public comments on this item. Public comments on this item. particularly?
Mayor Blum, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher, and like Councilmember Avery, this does strike me, and perhaps others of my generation, as being a little big brotherish. And I think when you see a sign being, "You are watched," being watched, it gives our neighborhoods a less welcoming aspect than they would otherwise or currently have. So I'm not really enthusiastic about this idea. But as I said in writing, I'm surprised. I thought what the council had in mind was license plate readers. But this is vague as to what the surveillance will be about. It's not facial recognition. It's not audio recording. But it doesn't say it's license plate readers. So is the council contemplating some other kind of surveillance when we are being watched? And if so, what is that? And then also the sign that is proposed says that this is in partnership with the Newport Beach Police Department, but there's nothing in the agreement with the HOAs that says that they have to cooperate with the police department. That seems to be purposeful, but I do not know what the purpose of that is. You would think if you're giving up the right to use the public right-of-way, you would expect something in return for that, like some obligation to provide information. I don't know why that's not in there. And then finally, of the 4 associations we heard had made requests, although I live very close to it, I think a number of people don't totally know when they hear the term Westcliff or Dover Shores what exactly that's referring to. I believe the Dover Shores Community Association is just the houses that are along Galaxy on the actual cliff face, pretty much. And I'm not sure that I assume, but don't know that they're actually a Davis Sterling Common Interest Development Act HOA. Many homeowners associations are not. So is that what the application is from, and do they qualify? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Okay, wonderful. I will say one quick thing. I appreciate the big brother comment, Jim. I really do. But I'm pretty sure every single one of us holds a phone in our pocket at all times. And so I think they're listening and watching anyway. So, hey, I would choose security in our city over anything else. So that's kind of where I stand on this. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. On this item, I'd like to make the motion to approve the staff recommendation with the amended language that was included in our packets, and also change Section 2 of the resolution to being September 30th, 2024, as opposed to July 1st, 2024. Councilmember Wagon's point is well taken. And if there is any date that would require it to be changed to the September 30th, 2024 for consistency, that as well.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Kleinman. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Excellent. Moving on to item 22, amendment number 1 to memorandum of understanding between the cities of Costa Mesa and Newport Beach for the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter. Staff report. Oh, hello, Tara.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm just waiting for my presentation to come up on the screen. Oh, great, thank you. For your consideration this evening is amendment number 1 to the memorandum of understanding between the cities of Costa Mesa and Newport Beach for the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter. The shelter opened in the spring of 2021. And since that time, Newport Beach has been able to have 99 people enter the shelter from Newport Beach. And that is even in spite of a period of COVID when there was actually about 3 shelter closures during the pandemic and a restricted capacity. And we also currently have 10 people on the shelter waiting list, 10 people out on the streets in Newport Beach hoping to get into either our shelter or one of the county shelters. Our shelter has been at or near capacity quite often. So we've been talking to Costa Mesa, and Costa Mesa has proposed adding 16 beds to the shelter. And of those 16 beds, 11 would be set aside for Costa Mesa and 5 for Newport Beach. In addition, Costa Mesa has said that if they are not using all of their beds, up to 5 of the Costa Mesa beds could be used by Newport Beach on a per-night basis. So what we're looking at for the city's cost would be a one-time contribution of $50,000 for furniture and fixtures. We'd also have an annual operations cost for the 5 additional beds totaling $275,000. And if we were able to use any of Costa Mesa's beds, that would be charged at $155 per day to Newport Beach. So to summarize, if Amendment Number 1 is approved, the City of Newport Beach would now have access to 25 beds at the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter. The city's annual payment to Costa Mesa would increase to $1,275,000 for annual operating costs. And again, we'd have that one-time $50,000 cost for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And one more piece in the amendment that Costa Mesa proposed was currently there's a mandatory CPI clause in there, and they're proposing to make that optional, and their city manager would determine each year whether or not to pass along a CPI increase to Newport Beach. And Mayor, that concludes the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the diligence and work on this piece. It's very appreciated. Councilmember Klein.
Thank you, Mayor. I just really quickly wanted to thank staff, and also I want to say I'm extremely supportive of getting more shelter beds and appreciative of the partnership that we have with Costa Mesa established by Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, and I'm hopeful that there'll be future opportunities for additional beds.
Thank you. Councilmember Avery.
One of the things that's not fun about being on council is the letters you get on certain issues. And my 7 years on council, getting the letters from people regarding the homeless situation, people who are experiencing homelessness, is really sobering on so many levels. And some of them are just red hot angry. Some are kind and supportive. It's all over the map. But for all of us, we have a reaction to it. And it just strikes me here, the solution is policy and money, because that's a lot of money. But that's what it's going to take. And you extrapolate that over the entire Southern California region, it's much more than this per person, per bed, to actually build a city, to build its shelter. And we're very fortunate to have this partnership with Costa Mesa. And I'm, for one, very appreciative, because it does give us an option to get people off the streets and hopefully toward, doing better. There's virtually no one on the street that's not experiencing mental health trouble. So I think this is a really difficult thing to say, our precious tax dollars, people point to that, but I think it's well worth it. Well worth it, because of the anxiety that people have about the homeless in our community. It's we need to do the right thing, and this is an excellent facility, so it makes total sense. And it's just part of our. This is not going away. This is going to be going on. There'll be more of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Grant.
I would agree with Councilmember Avery that we are very fortunate to have this partnership with Costa Mesa. We don't have a homeless shelter here in our city, and this is an essential component of moving the needle on homelessness. We must have shelter beds. Our beds have been and continue to be full. So the bed capacity increase is absolutely essential. We are using, precious resources, tax dollars, and we want to be good shepherds of that. But as Councilmember Avery said, this is the number one issue that comes up on a daily basis for many, many, many residents, and it's really important that we make strides in making changes. So I am very supportive of this. I would have a caveat. I'm hopeful that as we continue this partnership, that we in the city of Newport Beach, because we are in partnership with Costa Mesa, have more opportunity for input and control over how the resources are expended and how the shelter is operated, so that we can continue to make strides in not only placing people in the shelter, but also making that next step, moving people to more permanent situations and being able to have access to those shelter beds. We can't just continuously just expand shelter beds. We have to, make a connection between getting into the shelter, which is a very hard piece, and then moving from the shelter to permanent supportive housing. And I think with more local control, more of our staff that has the ability to work with the staff at the shelter and the staff at Costa Mesa, we can make strides on that. So I appreciate the effort by our staff, in particular, our city manager, our assistant city manager, our homeless coordinator, in at least getting us this piece. This is a really essential first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, to echo a lot of what was discussed, and my guess is most of the folks here are either here for this one, but probably most likely for the next item. This goes back quite a ways to when we first started addressing homelessness, and it was I appreciated being in the room with then Mayor Pro Tem John Stevens and now Mayor of Costa Mesa John Stevens, and I just wanted to say my appreciation to John and the rest of his council for working with us on a going basis. Thanks.
Wonderful. We're going to jump out to public comment on this item. Any public comments on the shelters, shelter beds? None? Not one. That's all for the next item. Wonderful. I'll just say one last piece, and I'm excited everyone's here to speak on the next item. But no, this is a huge part of kind of how we are getting to the next item as well. And these processes take a lot of time. And I really want to commend our staff from all sides that this is a lengthy and time-consuming process. It is especially hard sometimes working with other cities, although Costa Mesa has been a great ally and friend in a lot of this, and really comes to us first. And so we are proud to have that partnership. It really makes it easier and helps work with what our end goal is here in Newport, which we'll address in just a moment. All right. We have a motion on this one?
I'll second it.
Perfect. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem and a second by Councilmember Grant. Perfect. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Excellent. You guys ready? Okay, perfect. Item 22, amendment number 1 to a member in, oh, no, I lied. I was just going to do it again, so you all wanted to hang out with me a little longer. Item 23 is ordinance number 2023-11, prohibiting interference with public access, unpermitted structures on public property, and certain conduct on public property. Resolution number 2023-41, setting forth the City Council's approach to people experiencing homelessness. All right, we're not going to jump into a staff report on this one. I'm just going to say a couple words before we get going. And I want to thank my colleagues, Councilmember Grant and Kleinman, and Councilmember Avery and Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill. Actually, everyone up here, but Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill and Councilmember Avery have been working on this before I was even here. And then Councilmember Grant and Kleinman and I kind of took up the helm. This is not something that's happened in the last couple days, weeks, or months. This has been a process of years and years. These recommendations that came out of the ad hoc committee are a culmination of a lot of efforts within this city. And we have the same frustrations that everyone that's in the audience does right now. And our goal right now is to find the best, most proactive way to help those that are out there while ensuring the quality of life that we're all looking for. And so just know that we're all with you. We know there are going to be some speakers out here, and that's wonderful. But kind of keep that in mind, that we're all fighting for it, and this is a really great piece kind of moving forward. So we have any other comments on the dais to start this? Councilmember Kleinman, jump on in.
Thank you, Mayor Blum. I'll just sort of echo some of the things that you said. I want to thank my colleagues for backing the recommendations of our ad hoc committee and for staff's swift attention to its directives. I especially appreciate our city attorney, Aaron Harp's efforts in working with Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill and I to shape the resolution and ordinance before us today. Lastly, thank you to all of the community members who took the time away from your families and lives to participate in this public forum or communicate your input in writing. As I said at our last meeting, these measures that are being proposed are in the interest of getting people off of the street to protect them from the perils that face them. In no way are we trying to shuck our responsibility to provide assistance, as evidenced by the procurement of additional shelter beds and our partnerships with Be Well, CityNet, and Costa Mesa. We know that we can't fix this systemic problem without greater latitude and holistic solutions from other branches of government, but we will continue to offer services and shelter to the unhoused while trying to address accessibility concerns and restore order and safety for all our residents, businesses, and visitors. Before we go out to public comment, however, I want to reiterate that this is an issue with extreme complexity and a very restrictive legal framework. We must stand with and in support of our police. The goal here is to give them the tools they need to protect and serve our community in a job that they do very well and to the full extent of the laws they're confined to, a more and more narrowing tightrope, especially in this state. I want to emphasize that this is a tremendous step, but also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of work still to be done and to see these new policies and directives to fruition. To help manage expectations, perhaps either Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill or our City Attorney could just outline the process and timing for ordinance adoption, should there be consensus moving forward here.
I'll have Aaron do it.
Yeah. So just briefly, the way ordinances are adopted is a first reading this evening, and then it would come back at the next council meeting for a second reading, assuming the council is supportive, and then it'd go into effect 30 days thereafter.
Wonderful. Looks like we're going to jump right out to public comment on this, and knowing kind of the sentiment that's up here, hold that in the back of your mind before you decide to form a big line, but we'd love to have all of you speak. Anybody that's willing, please come up. Now is the time for public comment on this item. I'm going to be limiting it to 2 minutes for this piece. So,
you're okay? Hi, John
any
Palmer.
of the podiums, and feel free to form a line. Thanks, John. Go ahead.
Hi, John Palmer. I am both a resident, business owner, property owner in town. I just want to say thank you to the council for taking this seriously and for finding better solutions that we can help these people, get them off the street, and make sure that our public spaces that we all enjoy as residents, business owners, but also the visitors that come here, that they can safely enjoy our beaches and our public areas. And I think that's very, very important. It's important that we take care of these homeless folks and make sure they have places to go, but they have to cooperate in that. We need to give our police the tools that they need, and we need to make sure that the public, which is the majority of the population, poor or rich, has an opportunity to go to the beach safely without having any interruption or any bad experiences or safety issues due to the homelessness. It's a tough issue, and I thank you for taking the time to take it seriously. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Pamela Marks, and I'm a resident in Corona Del Mar. I'm also a registered nurse for 45 years in psychiatry. And I've made many phone calls to the police about the homeless situation on Avocado. I live on Avocado Avenue. And I've also brought meals for many of the homeless people that live downtown because I've seen them. They're elderly, they're hungry, they're dirty. And this is cruel and inhumane. So it makes me angry that I have to live with this filth and squalor on my street, but also breaks my heart that I have to see these people live like this. Nobody benefits from it. The patients or the people out in the street do not benefit. The neighborhood doesn't benefit. And it's so critical that we provide the care that they need, no matter how much it costs, because it's only going to get worse. And I've offered to volunteer to work with the homeless people because I really do care about the situation, but it's got to stop. I have this fear that my street's going to turn into downtown LA or downtown Portland, and I don't want that. But I also want to help these people because they need it. I know the main problem is the lack of inpatient hospital beds as the psychiatric units have closed and lost beds over the years, and the closure of the state hospitals. and the county does not have the resources. It was an unfunded mandate to provide care for the people, and they're just not there. It's just not there for them. So please step up to the plate, and whatever it takes, just help these people and help our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name's Helen Cameron, and I'm one of the community members who was first identified as 7 community people who had expertise in dealing with homeless issues. I have continued to be active in the Homeless Committee, which it rather astounded me when I got a notice from our Residents Association that this ordinance was coming to be put in front of the City Council. Our committee has continued to meet, and we were not knowledgeable about this. And because of that, I really want you to be cautious about this ordinance, because I see it being very heavy-handed. What we know about working with homeless folks and folks with a mental health diagnosis is it's not one-fit-all solutions. We know that there are best practices that we should be implementing, and I want to draw your attention to the UC San Francisco recent study on homelessness. 3,000 people were interviewed, and we learned a lot about who they are. And I'll just give you one quick example. We're very aware that the population on our streets are aging. A shelter is unfortunately not a viable option for many aging people. Often it's a bunk bed, and somebody who's in their 70s and 80s is unable to be sheltered there. So we need to look at different options for different folks. And the one agreement that I have, I definitely support the resolution where it talks about exits from the street. But I would like you to add the words into housing. A shelter is a very expensive option, as you've seen from the prior item. $55,000 a year for one person who might be in the shelter the whole year. Think about the rent that could be paid. And I'll briefly give you one more point. $3.1 million is the budget. That's $32,000 per person in our homeless population.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nathan Holthauser. I am a resident of Newport Beach. I'm a homeowner. I own a commercial real estate business. I manage several properties that are on the peninsula, Corona Del Mar, all throughout Newport, and I fully support this agenda item. I think some great points were just brought up from the previous speaker, and I think, she has a lot of compassion, and so do other people. She brought up a lot of great points of having that compassion. This particular agenda item and ordinance has to do with giving the police tools to protect basic rights of residents and property owners. Property owners are faced with all sorts of regulation from government, including ADA access and multiple forms of compliance that is extremely expensive. It's burdensome. It's hard enough to make a living when you're a business owner, and then to have to deal with not having the ability to keep access to your business or your commercial property it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I've personally seen the police department deal with the homeless, and I think that we should, applaud them because they're some of the best, responders I've ever seen. We manage properties from San Diego up to Venice Beach, and I can tell you that Newport Beach handles it the best. But this is just a tool that's going to enable them to handle it better. And it doesn't mean we're not compassionate. It doesn't mean we don't care. And I look forward to seeing some of the other solutions that come up. And I encourage you guys to actually make some of those solutions available to the public to participate in helping as well. And I thank you guys for bringing this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Distinguished members of Newport Beach City Council, my name is Ben Gott, and I am both a property and business owner here in the city of Newport Beach. I extend my gratitude to you guys for your service, and we have an exceptional city, but this is a really tough issue. Homelessness, it's crucial that we confront this issue head on, as it not only affects the individuals experiencing homelessness, but it undermines the safety of our streets, perpetuates drug issues, and acts as a deterrent for both visitors and commerce. Firstly, I express my gratitude for the steps already taken to alleviate homelessness in our community. I think I'm in full support of this ordinance. I think the idea in Costa Mesa is great. After looking at published numbers for the homelessness that we have, I think it was around 47 to 49 in our city. Still not enough beds. I don't know if beds is the solution to this or not, but certainly a situation to have places for people to go, showing them some compassion and giving them a second chance, because everyone deserves a second chance. Furthermore, an increase in police patrol is essential to ensuring the safety and security of both our residents and those experiencing homelessness. By bolstering our police force and giving them the tools that they need, we can curb a lot of these illicit activities, migrate safety concerns, and promote a sense of security within our community. Your support here in providing the necessary resources and tools to law enforcement agencies is critical in helping achieve these objectives, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
First and foremost, I want to thank the city staff, your continued effort and to address this complex issue that we all know has no easy solution. The ad hoc committee members, Mayor Blom, Councilwoman Lauren Kleiman, and Councilwoman Robin Grant. I want to thank the Newport Beach Police Department for their dedication to keeping our streets safe, accessible, and sanitary. Everyone is working tirelessly in pursuit of a better way, and I believe that the ordinance is something that will help address the homelessness in our community. My name is Kevin Giz, and I'm a resident of Lido Island, business owner, and own properties in Newport Beach. Some of you might remember the old Pine Knot. I recently acquired that and currently working to rehab it. In the short time that I've owned this property, homelessness has had a negative impact, as I've had to rely on the police to escort homeless trespassers off the property numerous occasions. I've had experiences with similar situations on properties on the peninsula. I want people who are experiencing homelessness to get the help that they truly deserve and to get them off the streets. I believe that allowing them to build temporary structures on public right of ways is not the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Blom, members of City Council. My name is Mario Morovic. I've got a unique perspective on the homeless situation in Newport Beach. I live in Newport Beach. We live in Corona Del Mar. We're building a family home in McFadden Square for me and my family. I've owned a business in Newport Beach since 2005. Now we have 6 businesses in Newport Beach, mostly in and around the McFadden Square area. But we're also property owners in Newport Beach as well. I'm going to tell you firsthand that the situation has gotten substantially worse in the recent 5 years. The things that I deal with owning properties on the boardwalk on a daily basis are inhumane. In the last couple of years, picking up human feces has become a morning ritual for my employees to do perimeter checks on our properties. That didn't happen 4 or 5 years ago. That started about 2 years ago. We have the same homeless people in the area that urinate on our doorsteps every day. That's not normal. I'm very compassionate to the homeless. I have a very close relative of mine who was homeless recently, but unfortunately he died of fentanyl. I have nothing but extreme compassion. But this ordinance is about enforcement. We're dealing with people that over by the Ben Carlson statue is becoming an open-air drug market. I don't know if you guys know this, but a few years ago we found a dead body underneath one of our dining tables on the patio. A few months after that, there were 2 more dead bodies found right in front of Charlie's Chili. About a month after that, there's a dead body found decomposing in a car that was sitting there for almost 3 weeks. Dead bodies are popping up around town. It's inhumane what we're dealing with. 6 weeks ago, somebody got shot in the face over by Charlie's Chili. He wasn't homeless. He suffered from mental illness. But the homeless encampment there is inviting other mentally ill people to our area. We are creating a situation where people are being, invited to Newport Beach. We are inviting people in to want to come down here to hang out in that open air situation where everybody is smoking marijuana. My children have walked down the boardwalk where somebody was smoking marijuana and blew smoke in my daughter's face unknowingly, but they're doing it. Marijuana is not legal to smoke in public. There's open drugs being used on a regular basis. All I'm asking is that we give the police department the best police department I've ever worked with. I've got businesses in 7 cities. Newport Beach is the best. Let's create a stronger public-private partnership where we can enforce what's enforceable, because what we're dealing with now has gotten substantially worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there. My name is Carly Omer. Thank you to the City Council, all of the concerned parents, members of our community, and families for being with us tonight. I have a son at St. Mark's and was in attendance at the previous June meeting. Of all of the ordinance and votes made and things passed this evening, this ordinance directly affects our community's children, their safety, protection, and well-being. You're here to protect our children because they can't protect themselves. It is unsafe for this particular homeless encampment to be so close to our school, to any school, period. You've heard only some of the horrific stories of the dangerous, scary, and overall nefarious activities happening in the encampment on San Joaquin that is spilling over into our neighborhoods and our schools. This is our plea that immediate and measurable action is taken before something worse happens. Countless other cities have passed similar ordinances to protect the welfare of the children of their communities, and it's time for Newport Beach to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Casey Walters. I live in Newport Heights, and I'm also a parent at St. Mark's. I was also in attendance at the last meeting to speak on the problems that the encampment on San Joaquin and Avocado is having for our preschool. I just want to say that we think this ordinance is a good start, and we're excited about it. We think that it will solve some of the problems that it's causing. While it might not be a perfect solution, it's a good start. As the gentleman before, 2 speakers before said, all those problems that he was talking about on the boardwalk, those are starting to happen for us at a preschool with children ages 2 to 5. So we are just asking again, and we'll keep asking as long as there's still tents within a couple hundred feet of the parking lot and of our school, and for as long as Maggie and the other teachers have to clean up broken beer bottles and beer bottles full of urine and tell people not to use the hose or break toys. As long as those things keep happening, we'll be here asking you guys to help. Please protect our children, and please help get that encampment out of the way and far away from the preschool. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Amarasaria, and I've been thinking about all the things that we've been told by the city council, perhaps, and by nonprofits working with the city council, and it's been such a disjointed message. It's just been all over the place. We've been told we can't do anything if we don't have shelter beds. We can't use the shelter because of COVID. We need more shelter beds. They don't live here. They just ride the buses here and go back, so we can't control that. It's okay if they have tarps, but not tents. The tents are for cold weather only. The tents are all donated. We can't do anything about that. It's OCTA's fault. We can't do anything about that. It's the Urban Company's fault. We can't do anything about that. We have to build relationships with the homeless first before we actually do anything that would be disruptive. And there isn't enough affordable housing. We can't move them if they refuse service and don't want to be moved. And I'll stop there, but you get the idea. It's just been not a cohesive message at all for people who live here. So I just hope that you know that you have our support and that you feel emboldened to take these steps that are really going to help the situation for everyone.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Blum, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. We were told earlier about the process by which an ordinance gets enacted, involving a first reading, which is happening tonight, and then that identical text being adopted by you at a future meeting and going into effect 30 days after that. I think Helen Cameron made some wise comment to you that seems to be a rather complex ordinance. The committee may have looked at it for some time. The public has had very little time to look at it. It's very likely to be challenged. So I think you want to be clear that it has been well considered and is defensible. I had not myself looked at it until you were having your closed session this afternoon. I looked at this page with a lot of red writing on it. It's page 2327. It's listing all the parks in the city, and it popped out to me that it mentions the Coastal Peak Park, P-E-E-K, like looking at something quickly. I don't think it's Coastal Peak Park. I think it's like the top of a mountain. And then at the top of that, I noticed that it called out as prohibited public places where you're not allowed to camp or encamp, the two things apparently meaning something different. And we're calling out that you can't camp on the Newport Pier or the Balboa Pier, but does that mean it's okay to camp on one of our harbor-facing piers that the city owns? Are they okay for camping or encamping? Not sure. And then that paragraph also refers to the exception for cancer treatment centers located in a mixed-use horizontal zone, which earlier is the things you have to stay 500 feet away from, including colleges, schools, daycare centers. How can one rationally explain why a cancer center located in a mixed-use horizontal zone would need any more protection than one in any other zone in the city, and why a cancer treatment center needs more protection than another kind of medical facility like a dialysis center or a hospital even? And we're not mentioning you have to stay away from hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item? Seeing none, we're going to bring it back up to the dais. Councilmember Weigand.
Yes, I just wanted to, I really didn't speak much on this item at all, the last meeting and this item tonight, but I did want to express my thank yous to the ad hoc committee, Councilmember Kleiman, Councilmember Grant, and Mayor Blom, and then Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill and our city attorney working on the resolution itself. So thank you guys for really logging in many, many, many hours of time. And it really is heartfelt, I think, from me, because this issue hits home at Mariners Park. I'm there all the time, and I see a lot of activity. And all the residents that have written in, we've seen probably hundreds in the last couple of days of our friends, people I went to high school with, people I've grown up with, people I know that are concerned with this. So I appreciate your guys' hard work in addressing this. The residents will be thankful, and I'm thankful too. So I did notice on page 2312 under the ordinance, just was reading some of the interference with public access on daycare center and some of that, the next one, the school section. I noticed that Lincoln Elementary was missing, and that's one of our 8 Newport Beach elementary schools. So that was inadvertently, I'm sure, left off the list. So if that could get added to there. And then I think I was only looking in the daycare center, but there's also a Newport Christian school, but I think it's probably in there, just to double check. Newport Christian Academy, I think, is the same thing. It was next to the milestones, miraculous milestones. So just double check on that. And then maybe if there's a way to maybe look one more time over at all the schools, daycare centers, all the things that we list there, just to make sure that any weren't inadvertently missed. I know that it says in the language, but not limited to. So I think that kind of prevents any issue if we do. But just to double check, it would be nice to have everything included. But that's all I have. And again, I appreciate this council's dedication to this issue.
Thanks, Councilmember Weigand. Councilmember Stapleton.
Yeah, I would just echo Councilman Weigand's comments. Thank you to the ad hoc committee for all your work, and thank you for the residents and those of you who sent emails and came here to speak tonight. I think the common theme I'm hearing across the city is that we've all got compassion for these individuals that are going through a tough time, and there certainly is no compassion for leaving these people on the streets. One thing I do want to mention in this item, I don't think it goes far enough or even really discusses a lot about RVs in our city. And if you've gone through District 1, you've seen your fair share. I've mentioned this many, many times for the last year and a half, but there continues to be a lot of RVs parked up and down the peninsula, especially down by me on the west side, Marina Park and the Balboa Pier. So kudos to our police department for all they're doing to help continue to fight this issue and what's going on in our community. But I think it's something we have to continue to address with the RVs that are parking for extended stays in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Grant.
So it is important to recognize that this is just an important first step. This is not the end of this discussion or of the dedication to probably all 7 of us up here to making sure that we make strides in addressing the homeless situation in our city and making sure that public safety and just safe use of our city by our residents and our businesses and our visitors is ensured. So this is an important first step, but it's not the only step. There is a companion policy that was recommended by the ad hoc committee, and there's other pieces to this that we continue to work on. We definitely want to make sure that we're doing our own count of homeless, so we have an accurate picture of really, what we're looking at as far as an issue in our city and how we address it and how much of our resources that we expend in this. Knowing the numbers, the accurate numbers, and having control over that is an essential piece. Focusing our funding in measures that are results oriented and we can have metrics on is very important. And so we've undertaken so far a huge task of looking at everything that we've been doing in the city, looking at all of our contracts, staff time, time that's spent by other cities in partnership, making sure that we are making strides in utilizing our resources properly. And just merely this piece of it, ensuring that our laws are, enforced fairly and equitably. So there's a lot more to be done, and this is an important first step, combined with the beds that we're also bringing to the table here. It's a lot, but it's not enough, and we will continue to work hard on this.
Wonderful. I want to thank everyone for all the work that we've done up here today, and all of you for coming out here. Do understand, I think it was reiterated many times, but we're looking at this from every possible angle and every possible approach that we can take. And so we really do appreciate the input. Any solutions that the public has, we're always willing to listen to as well as work it through ourselves. So seeing no others, do I have a motion and a second? Councilmember Kleiman, would you like to make the motion here? And Councilmember Grant, are you happy to make the second? Beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Just friendly amendment. Yeah, to Councilmember Wygan's point, we should probably, even though it doesn't specifically have to be referenced, we should probably reference Lincoln. And then I know that I've been to Coastal Peak Park. I know that park. If there's a typo, we can fix that. But anyway, is that okay, Councilmember Kleiman?
Of course.
Cool. Thanks.
Great. Let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 2023-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Chapter 10.8 to prohibit interference with public access, adding Chapter 10.14, prohibiting unpermitted structures on public property, and amending Section 11.4.70 to prohibit certain conduct in public parks, public facilities, and at public beaches. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Look at me allowing clapping in the room. Madam Clerk, please read the announcement for motions for reconsideration.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Are there any motions for reconsideration? Seeing none, we are adjourned.